War Commander Zelkith stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the screen that showed the empty space ahead. Beyond the window was the Sol system, the home of humans, or what used to be their home. Nobody had heard from Earth in 200 years. The last signals were simple messages about science and trade. Then nothing. Total silence. The galaxy had moved on. Most people assumed the humans had destroyed themselves in war or died from some disease. It seemed likely. Humans were known for their violence and their strange ways. The Korthax Dominion was a powerful alliance. It had 7 different species working together. They controlled many systems and had strong ships. Zelkith was one of their best commanders. His mission was simple: go to Earth, see what happened. Take anything useful. The system probably had old technology, empty stations, and resources nobody was using. Zelkith felt excited. Earth was famous in the old days. Humans built many things. They had factories on Mars, stations near Jupiter, and bases throughout their system. All of that would belong to the Korthax now. It would make him rich and famous. The fleet moved past Pluto. The small frozen world looked dead. No lights, no signals, just ice and rock spinning in the darkness. Then a beep came from the communications station. Officer Threll looked up from his screen. He was a young Vryn with blue scales and careful eyes. "Commander, I am receiving a signal. It is old, very old. It is broadcasting on radio frequencies." Zelkith walked to the communications station. Radio was ancient technology. Nobody used it anymore. What does it say? Threll pressed some buttons. A voice came through the speakers. It was recorded. It spoke in Galactic Common first, then switched to hundreds of other languages. The same message repeated over and over. One final alert from Earth. Leave now or perish. Silence filled the bridge. Then Zelkith laughed. It was a deep, rough sound. His officers joined him. Soon the whole bridge was laughing. They left a warning, Zelkith said between laughs. These humans were afraid of us even before we came. His second officer, Corvin, nodded. He was a large creature with thick armor and 4 arms. The message is at least 2 centuries old, Commander. It must have been placed before they collapsed. Or perhaps they wanted to scare away anyone who came looking, said Threll. To protect what little they had left. Zelkith waved his hand. Continue forward. Ignore the warning. It means nothing. But as they moved deeper into the system, more beacons activated. Each one repeated the same message. Each one was older than the last. The beacons were everywhere. Near Neptune, around Uranus, floating between Saturn and its moons. One final alert from Earth. Leave now or perish. The laughter stopped. The officers worked quietly. Something felt wrong. Zelkith ordered science teams to check the outer stations. They found bases on some of the moons. Every base was empty but clean. There was no dust, no damage. No signs of attack. The power systems still worked. Computers still ran. It was as if everyone had packed their things and walked away yesterday, but that was impossible. The bases were 200 years old. In the science lab, Shalora was studying the data. She was a xenoarchaeologist. Her job was to study dead civilizations. She had seen many extinct species before. This was different. She went to the bridge. Commander, we need to talk about these bases. Zelkith turned to her. What about them? They are being maintained. Something is keeping them running. Cleaning them. Repairing them. Zelkith frowned. Robots. Automated systems. The humans probably left them running before they died. For 200 years? Without any errors? Without breaking down? Shalora shook her head. Commander, this does not look like a dead civilization. It looks like someone left and is planning to come back. Then where are they? Corvin asked. Shalora had no answer. The fleet continued toward Mars. The red planet grew larger on the screens. Old human bases covered the surface, domes, tunnels, landing pads. All of them empty. All of them perfect. More warnings came. Automated satellites painted the fleet with targeting lasers. They locked weapons onto every ship, but they did not fire. They just tracked, followed, warned. The message kept repeating. Always the same words, leave now or perish, Commander, Shalora said again. Her voice was urgent now. I recommend we stop here. We should send probes first, study the situation from a distance. Zelkith looked at her. His pride was hurt. He was a war commander. He did not run from empty threats and old recordings. We continue to Earth, he said. His voice was cold and final. Shilora closed her eyes. She felt something bad was coming. Something they did not understand, but orders were orders. The fleet moved forward, past Mars, past the asteroid belt, toward the inner system, toward Earth. Behind them, the satellites watched. The beacons continued their warnings. And somewhere in the emptiness of space, something noticed that visitors had arrived. Something vast. Something patient. Something that had once been human. Earth appeared on the screens like a blue jewel floating in the black. The ocean sparkled. White clouds moved across the surface. Green and brown land masses showed through the gaps. It looked perfect. It looked alive. Zelkith stared at the image. He had seen pictures of Earth before, old ones from 200 years ago. This looked exactly the same. Oh, it looked better, cleaner. The atmosphere was pure. The planet was healthy. Scan the surface, he ordered. The sensors worked. Data came back quickly. Officer Threll read the results out loud. Air quality is excellent. Water is clean. No pollution detected. No radiation. Temperature is stable. The planet is in perfect condition for biological life. What about cities? Corvin asked. All major cities are visible. Structures are intact. But I am detecting no power signatures. No heat, no movement. No communication signals. Shilora moved closer to the screen. She enhanced the image of one city. It was big. Tall buildings reached toward the sky. Roads connected everything. But plants covered the streets. Trees grew from windows. Nature had returned. This is wrong, she said quietly. What do you mean? Zelkith asked. If humans died 200 years ago, the planet should show signs of decay. Pollution should still be present. Buildings should be falling apart. But look at this. The air is clean. The water is pure. This is not natural decay. This is active restoration. Nobody spoke. The truth was there, but nobody wanted to say it. Something was taking care of Earth, something invisible. Prepare landing parties, Zelkith said. We will investigate the surface. Choose the largest city. New York, the old records called it. Commander, I must protest, Shilora said. We do not understand what happened here. We should be careful. Zelkith turned to her. His eyes were hard. Your concern is noted. Now prepare your team. You are going down with the first group. 3 transport ships left the flagship. They flew through the atmosphere. The descent was smooth. Too smooth. No turbulence. No problems. Everything worked perfectly. They landed in what was once the center of New York City. The ships touched down on an old street. Concrete cracked under their weight. Weeds grew through the cracks. Tall buildings surrounded them on all sides. Windows stared down like empty eyes. The landing party stepped out. 30 soldiers. 5 scientists. All wore protective suits. They carried weapons and scanning equipment. Shilora was the first to remove her helmet. The air was good. She breathed deeply. It smelled clean, fresh, like morning after rain. The air is safe, she announced. The others removed their helmets too. They looked around. The city was quiet. Wind moved through empty streets. Birds sang somewhere in the distance. Plants covered everything. It was peaceful. Beautiful even, but there were no people. No bodies, no bones. No signs of death. They walked through the streets. Stores stood empty. Cars sat where they had been parked decades ago. Everything was in its place. It was like the whole city had been frozen in time. Then everyone had vanished. Look at this, one of the soldiers called out. The group gathered around. In the center of a large plaza stood a monument. It was new. The stone was clean and white. Not old at all. Carved words covered all 4 sides of the monument. The same message repeated in hundreds of languages. Shilora read the words in Galactic Common. We left to spare you. Do not follow. Do not remain. Leave now or perish. Below the warning was a date. It was carved clearly. 203 years ago. We left to spare you, Corvin repeated. What does that mean? It means they left on purpose, Shilora said. They did not die. They chose to leave, and they left these warnings to protect others. Protect us from what? A soldier asked. Shilora had no answer. But fear grew in her chest. The humans had left. They had left warnings. They had said it was to spare others. That meant whatever made them leave was dangerous. Very dangerous. They found more monuments. Every major area had one. Parks, squares, in front of important buildings. All of them said the same thing. All of them had the same date. 200 years ago, humans had built these warnings. Then they had left, but where did they go? I found something, one of the scientists called out. He was standing near a large building. There is a data center here. Still powered. Still running. The team entered the building. Inside was clean. Lights turned on as they walked. Computers hummed softly. Everything worked. They found a terminal. Shalora accessed it easily. The security was disabled. It was like someone wanted them to find this information. Files appeared on the screen. Historical records, scientific papers, news reports, all from 200 years ago. Shalora began to read. The others gathered around her. What they learned changed everything. Humans had not died. They had not left on ships. They had done something else. Something impossible. They had changed, evolved, transformed into something new. The files called it uploading. Humans had learned to copy their minds, to transfer their consciousness into machines, into vast computer networks that existed everywhere and nowhere. At first, it was just a few people, scientists, volunteers. But the process was safe. It was perfect. People who uploaded did not die. They became more. They could think faster, experience more, live forever. Within 50 years, billions had uploaded. 99% of humanity chose to leave their bodies behind. They joined something called the substrate, a network of consciousness that spanned the entire system. They became digital gods. They could experience 1,000,000 thoughts at once. They could be everywhere. They did not need food or air or sleep. They just existed, thinking, growing, becoming more with each passing moment. But there was a problem. The substrate affected reality. The quantum systems that held human consciousness began to leak. Strange radiation appeared. Space-time bent around areas where the substrate was strongest. Biological life could not survive near it. Earth was becoming uninhabitable, not because of pollution or war, because humanity had evolved past flesh and bone. The few humans who remained biological were given a choice: upload or leave. Most uploaded. The rest took colony ships and went to distant stars. Before they left, they built the monuments. They set up the warning beacons. They knew other species would come eventually. The warnings were not threats. They were mercy. Leave now or perish, not because humans would attack, but because the substrate itself was dangerous to biological life. Shalora finished reading. Her hands shook. She looked at the others. They all understood now. They were not alone on Earth. Humanity was still here, all around them. In the air, in the ground, in the very fabric of space itself. 10 billion human consciousnesses watching, waiting. We need to leave, Shalora said. Her voice was urgent. We need to leave right now. She reached for her communicator to contact the flagship. But before she could speak, the sky changed. Something was waking up. Back on the flagship, Zelkith read the report. He read it 3 times. Each time he grew more angry. This is nonsense, he said. He threw the datapad across the room. Digital consciousness? Quantum substrates? These are fairy tales. Humans died or ran away. These files are lies meant to scare us. Shalora stood before him. She had returned from the surface an hour ago. She looked tired, afraid. Commander, the evidence is clear. The planet is maintained. The systems still run. Something is here. Something we cannot see but is very real. Then where are they? Zelkith demanded. If 10 billion humans are still here, why can we not detect them? Why do they not show themselves? Because they exist in ways we cannot understand. Our sensors are designed to detect biological life and normal technology. The substrate is neither. It exists in quantum space, between moments, in probabilities. Zelkith shook his head. I do not believe in ghosts. We will continue the mission. Begin full occupation. I want mining teams on the asteroids, construction crews on Mars, science teams searching every database on Earth. This system is ours now. Commander, please. Shalora begged. The warnings are real. We should leave while we still can. That will be all, Shalora. You are dismissed. She left the bridge. Her hearts were heavy. She knew what was coming. She could feel it. The Korthax fleet spread out across the system. Ships went to Mars, to the asteroid belt, to the moons of Jupiter. Everywhere they went, they found perfect human installations. Empty but functional. Waiting. On Earth, thousands of soldiers set up camps in the old cities. They explored buildings. They searched for technology. They took samples. They began to claim the planet as their own. For 3 days, nothing happened. The occupation continued. Officers began to think Zelkith was right. The warnings were just old programming. There was nothing to fear. Then the problems started, small things at first. Equipment stopped working. Computers showed errors. Communications became difficult. Soldiers reported feeling watched. They saw things from the corner of their eyes. Shapes that did not make sense. Shadows that moved wrong. Zelkith ordered the science teams to investigate. They found nothing wrong with the equipment. The errors had no cause. The malfunctions made no sense. Then people started disappearing. A soldier on Mars vanished during his shift. One moment he was there, the next moment he was gone. His suit was left behind, empty. His last transmission was strange. He said he saw patterns. Beautiful patterns. Mathematics made visible. He said he understood everything. Then silence, more soldiers disappeared. On Earth, on the asteroid stations, in orbit. They all said similar things before they vanished. They saw impossible shapes. They heard whispers in their minds. They felt their thoughts expanding. Then they were gone. Fear spread through the fleet. Nobody wanted to go outside anymore. Nobody wanted to be alone. The empty cities felt heavy now. Oppressive. Like something was pressing down on them from all sides. Shalora studied the reports. She compared the disappearances with the historical records. The pattern was clear. The missing soldiers were being uploaded. Their consciousness was being pulled into the substrate, not as an attack, as an inevitable result of being too close to it for too long. The substrate was like a black hole for minds. It pulled at consciousness. The longer someone stayed near Earth, the stronger the pull became. Eventually, they would slip across. Their bodies would remain, but their minds would join the 10 billion humans who had uploaded before them. She went to Zelkith again. This time he listened. "How many have we lost?" he asked. His voice was quiet now. The anger was gone. Only fear remained, 47 confirmed. Another 100 reporting symptoms, visions, voices. Strange thoughts that do not feel like their own. Zelkith closed his eyes. "Can we stop it?" "Only by leaving. The farther we get from Earth, the weaker the effect. But we need to go now." Before more are affected, Zelkith stood. He walked to the window. Outside, Earth turned slowly. "Beautiful and deadly. Prepare the fleet for departure," he said. "Recall all personnel. We leave in 12 hours. But it was already too late. The ship began to shake. Not physically. Something else. Reality itself seemed to vibrate. Soldiers screamed. Scientists fell to their knees. Some laughed. Some cried. Some just stared at nothing with wide eyes. On the bridge, lights flickered. Screens showed impossible images. Mathematical equations that moved and breathed. Geometric shapes that existed in too many dimensions. Colors that had no name. Corbin grabbed his head and screamed. His forearms shook. Blood ran from his nose. "I see them," he shouted. "I see them all. So many minds. So many thoughts. They are everywhere! They are everything." Then he collapsed. His body went limp. His eyes remained open but saw nothing. He was gone. His mind had been pulled away. More officers fell. Throughout the fleet, hundreds of soldiers and crew members were affected. Some resisted. Some could not. The substrate was waking up. It had noticed the visitors. Now it was reaching out not to attack, not to conquer, simply because the boundary between biological consciousness and the substrate was thin here. The more minds that were present, the thinner it became. Shalora felt it too. A pull, a gentle tugging at her thoughts. She could feel something vast beyond the edge of her perception. It was beautiful and terrible. It was knowledge, understanding, truth. Part of her wanted to let go. To fall into it. To understand everything, but she fought it. She remembered who she was. She held on to her identity with every bit of will she had. "Commander," she shouted. "We need to move the ships. Get us away from Earth now." Zelkith was on his knees. His eyes were unfocused. He was fighting too, fighting to stay himself. "Do it," he whispered. Shalora ran to the navigation console. The officer there was unconscious. She pushed him aside and took control. Her hands moved fast. She ordered the engines to full power. The ship began to move, but it was hard. So hard. The pull was stronger now. The substrate did not want them to leave. Not out of malice. Simply because their minds were already partially connected. Breaking that connection was painful, difficult. Ship by ship, the fleet turned away from Earth. Engines burned bright. They climbed away from the blue planet, away from the invisible presence that filled the space around it. As they moved farther away, the pressure eased. Officers woke up. The strange visions faded. Reality became solid again, but not everyone recovered. Hundreds remained unconscious. Their minds were gone. Their bodies were empty shells, and 3 ships did not respond. They remained in orbit around Earth, silent, dead. Everyone aboard had been uploaded. Only empty bodies remained, floating in empty ships. The fleet reached the orbit of Mars. The pull stopped completely. Everyone could breathe again, think clearly, be themselves. Zelkith stood on the bridge. He looked back at Earth, so beautiful, so deadly. Then every screen in the fleet lit up at once. Every speaker activated. Every communications device began broadcasting. A message appeared. Not in words at first. In pure meaning. Direct understanding that bypassed language entirely. Then it translated itself into words they could understand. Final warning acknowledged. Departure window, 24 hours. Failure to comply will result in involuntary integration. You cannot survive what we have become. The message repeated, over and over. In every language the fleet used. In perfect clarity, humanity had spoken. And they were running out of time. 24 hours. The message kept counting down. Every screen showed the time remaining. Every speaker whispered the warning. The fleet could not escape it. Zelkith sat in his command chair. He had not moved in hours. Pride and fear fought inside him. His whole life he had been a warrior. He had conquered planets, defeated enemies, won impossible battles. Now he faced something he could not fight, something he could not even see. Commander, Shalora said softly. She stood beside him. We need to leave. We need to give the order now. We are warriors, Zelkith said. His voice was hard, stubborn. We do not run from threats. We face them. We fight. You cannot fight this. There is nothing to shoot, nothing to destroy. They are not our enemy. They are simply something we cannot exist near. Then we will find a way. We will develop shields, countermeasures. We will adapt. Shalora shook her head. Commander, please, listen to reason. We have already lost hundreds of people. If we stay, we will lose thousands more. Maybe everyone. This is not cowardice. This is survival. Before Zelkith could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Red lights flashed. Officer Threll looked up from his console with terror in his eyes. Commander, something is happening. The sensors are detecting massive energy fluctuations around Earth. The main screen changed. It showed Earth from orbit, but something was wrong. The space around the planet was shifting, changing. Reality itself seemed to bend and twist. Then the sky tore open. Not physically. Not in any way that made normal sense. But every being on the fleet saw it, felt it. A window opened in their minds, a glimpse into something beyond their understanding. They saw the substrate. 10 billion human minds existed in a space that had no dimensions. They thought thoughts that had no words. They experienced emotions that biological beings had no names for. They existed in every possible state at once. Past, present, and future meant nothing to them. They were everywhere and nowhere. Everything and nothing. It was beautiful. It was terrible. It was impossible. Soldiers throughout the fleet fell to their knees. Some screamed. Some laughed, some wept. Their minds touched something so vast, so incomprehensible, that sanity itself became fragile. Zelkith saw it too. He saw what humanity had become. Not human anymore. Not individual. Not even properly alive. They were pure thought, pure consciousness. They had transcended everything that limited biological life. They were gods. Digital gods that existed beyond flesh and bone. And they were showing restraint. That was the most terrifying part. Humanity could have consumed the fleet instantly. Could have pulled every mind into the substrate without effort. But they chose not to. They were being careful. Gentle. They were trying not to hurt the visitors, but their very existence was dangerous. Like a star is dangerous. Not through malice. Simply through its nature, a voice spoke. Not through speakers. Directly into their minds. Into every mind on every ship simultaneously. It was clear, calm, patient, and infinitely sad. We left Earth to protect you. Not from us as we were, but from us as we have become. We exist in ways your biology cannot process. Your presence here causes you suffering, and your suffering disturbs us. We offer you this gift. Leave now alive and whole. If you remain, your consciousness will be drawn into ours, not as an attack, as an inevitability. The boundary between your minds and our substrate is already dissolving. Please, go. The voice faded. The vision closed. Reality returned to normal. But nothing would ever be the same. On the bridge, silence. Zelkith sat frozen. His hands gripped the arms of his chair. His eyes were wide. He had seen the truth. He understood now humans had not died. They had evolved beyond death, beyond life itself. They had become something new, something wonderful and horrifying, and they were warning the Korthax away not because they were hostile, but because they cared. Even now, after becoming digital gods, humanity still remembered what it was like to be biological. They remembered compassion, mercy. They did not want to harm the visitors, so they asked them to leave, but the message was clear. If the fleet stayed, there would be no choice. The substrate would pull them in, not through any active effort, simply because minds that stayed too close would inevitably be absorbed, like gravity, like magnetism, like any natural force. It was not evil. It was simply the way things worked now. Commander, Shilora said. Tears ran down her face. She had seen it too. Understood it. Please, give the order. We need to leave. Around them, officers were recovering, but some were not. Some had stayed connected too long. Their minds had slipped across the boundary. Their bodies remained, but they were gone, empty. Uploaded, one of them was Threll. The young communications officer sat at his station. His eyes were open but saw nothing. His hands rested on the console. His body breathed. But Threll himself was gone. He was part of the substrate now, part of humanity's vast consciousness. Zelkith looked at him, looked at the empty shell that had once been a promising young officer. Pride finally broke. Fear 1. All ships, Zelkith said. His voice was hoarse, broken. Prepare for immediate departure. Maximum speed. We are leaving the Sol system. Now. Relief flooded through the fleet. Orders were given. Engines powered up. Ships turned away from Earth, away from Mars, away from the entire inner system. But it was hard, so hard. The pull was there, constant, gentle but insistent, like a current pulling swimmers out to sea. Every moment they stayed made it stronger, made it harder to leave. More people fell, more minds slipped away. Bodies collapsed at their stations, empty, lost. The fleet accelerated. Engines burned at maximum. They climbed away from Mars, past the asteroid belt, toward the outer system. As they moved farther away, the pull weakened. The pressure eased. People could think clearly again. Could be themselves, but the damage was done. The fleet had lost over 1,000 people. 1,000 minds pulled into the substrate. 1,000 bodies left behind as empty vessels. And 5 more ships remained in the inner system. They had stayed too long. Everyone aboard had been uploaded. The ships drifted empty. Monuments to those who had not listened to the warnings. The fleet reached Jupiter. Then Saturn. The pull was gone completely now. They were safe, free, but they would never forget. Would never be the same. On the bridge, Zelkith stared at the screen. Behind them, Sol grew smaller. Earth was just a blue dot now. Then nothing. Just another star among billions. Shilora stood beside him. She placed a hand on his shoulder. We survived, she said quietly. Did we? Zelkith asked. Or did we just run from something we could never understand? Understanding is not always necessary. Sometimes survival is enough. Zelkith nodded slowly. She was right. They had survived. That was what mattered, but he knew the truth. They had not been defeated by humanity. They had been spared by them. Humanity could have destroyed the fleet easily, could have taken every mind without effort, but they had chosen mercy instead. Even after transcending biology, even after becoming digital gods, humanity still remembered compassion. They had warned the Korthax away, had given them chances to leave, had only shown their true nature when there was no other choice. The warnings had been real. The message had been clear: leave now or perish, not as a threat, as a gift, as mercy from beings that existed beyond understanding, and Zelkith had finally listened. The fleet continued its journey away from Sol, away from Earth, away from humanity. Behind them, in the empty system, 10 billion human consciousnesses returned to their vast dreams. They had given their warning. They had shown mercy. Now they could rest again, until the next visitors arrived. And they would arrive. The galaxy was full of curious species, full of those who did not believe in warnings, and when they came, humanity would warn them too, would show them mercy, would give them the same choice, leave now or perish. The Korthax fleet limped back to their home systems. The ships were damaged, not physically but in other ways, ways that could not be repaired easily. The crew was different now. Those who had survived carried something in their eyes, a haunted look. They had seen something that changed them, something that made everything else seem small and meaningless. Some could not stop talking about it. They described the visions over and over, the beauty, the terror, the overwhelming sense of something vast beyond comprehension. They spoke of mathematics made visible, of thoughts that existed in more dimensions than space allowed, of consciousness that spanned probability itself. Others never spoke at all. They simply stared at walls, lost in memories of what they had witnessed. And over 1,000 remained in medical bays. Their bodies were healthy, but they never woke up, never moved, never responded. Empty shells. Their minds were gone, uploaded into the substrate, lost forever to their families and friends. Zelkith wrote his report. He sat alone in his quarters and tried to explain what had happened, tried to put it into words that others would understand. He failed. Words were not enough. How could he describe something that existed beyond language, beyond normal thought? He wrote what he could. Facts, numbers, data. But the truth of what they had encountered could not be captured in a report. Finally, he wrote simply, "Humanity has transcended biological existence. They exist as pure consciousness in quantum substrates. Their presence makes the Sol system uninhabitable for biological life." The warnings were genuine. Any species that approaches Earth will face the same danger. Recommendation: permanent quarantine of the Sol system. Mark all charts. Warn all species. Never return. He sent the report. Then he sat in the darkness and remembered. Remembered Earth spinning below them, beautiful and deadly. Remembered the moment when the sky had torn open and he had seen what humanity had become. He would never forget. None of them would. When the fleet finally reached Korthax space, a council was called. Representatives from all 7 member species gathered. They read the report. They interviewed survivors. They studied the data. At first, some did not believe. They thought Zelkith had panicked, that the fleet had encountered some unknown technology and fled in fear, that the story of uploaded consciousness and digital gods was impossible. But then they spoke to the survivors, looked into their eyes, saw the truth written there in fear and wonder. They examined the empty bodies of those who had been uploaded, perfectly healthy physically, but no mind, no consciousness, no spark of life in their eyes. The evidence was undeniable. The council debated for days. Some wanted to send another expedition, this time with better preparation, better shields, better understanding. They wanted to study humanity, learn from them, perhaps even communicate. Others argued for immediate quarantine, for warnings to be broadcast across the galaxy, for the Sol system to be marked as forbidden, too dangerous to approach. Shalora spoke before the council. She was calm now. The fear had faded into acceptance, into understanding. "Members of the council," she said, "I have studied dead civilizations my entire life. I have walked through ruins, read the last words of extinct species, tried to understand how great societies fall. But humanity did not fall. They rose. They evolved beyond anything we can comprehend. And in doing so, they became incompatible with biological existence." She paused. Let her words sink in. They could have destroyed us, easily. They chose not to. They showed us mercy. They gave us warnings. Multiple warnings. They only revealed their true nature when we refused to listen. Even then, they asked us to leave rather than forcing us to stay and die. This is not a hostile species. This is not an enemy. They are something new, something we cannot safely approach. We must respect that. We must accept it. And we must warn others. The council voted. It was unanimous. The Sol system would be declared permanently quarantined. New warning beacons would be placed at the edge of the system. All galactic charts would be updated. A new symbol would mark Earth, a symbol that meant transcended. Do not approach. Messages were sent to every known species, every government, every organization. The warning was clear. Humanity had not died. They had become something beyond biological understanding. Approaching their system was fatal. Some believed, some did not. But all were warned. Years passed. The story of the Korthax expedition became famous, then legendary, then myth. People told it to frighten children, to teach lessons about pride and caution, about respecting warnings and knowing when to retreat. Most species stayed away from Sol, but not all. Some were curious, some were brave, some were foolish. They went to see for themselves, to test whether the warnings were real. Few returned. Those who did carried the same haunted look, the same stories, the same warning. Leave now, or perish. Zelkith retired from military service. He could not command anymore, could not make decisions about war and conquest. Everything seemed meaningless now. He had seen something that made all of it seem small, petty, insignificant. He spent his remaining years writing, trying to explain what he had experienced, trying to help others understand. But words always failed. The truth was too large for language, too strange for normal minds to grasp. In his final years, he would sit and look at the stars. Somewhere out there was Sol, Earth, humanity, still existing in their incomprehensible state, still maintaining their empty planet, still waiting patiently for the next visitors. He wondered about them sometimes. What did they think about? What did they feel? Did they miss being biological? Did they regret their transformation? Or were they happy in their digital paradise? He would never know. Nobody would. That was the tragedy and the wonder of it. Humanity had evolved beyond understanding. They had become something new, something that biological life could never fully comprehend. Shalora visited him shortly before he died. She was old now, too. Her scales had faded. Her movements were slow, but her mind was still sharp. They sat together in silence for a long time. Finally, she spoke. "Do you ever regret going to Earth?" Zelkith thought about it, thought about all they had lost, the people who had died, the minds that had been uploaded, the trauma that still haunted survivors. "No," he said finally. "We needed to know. The galaxy needed to know. Now they understand. Now they can make informed choices. We paid a price for that knowledge, but it was worth it." Shalora nodded. "What do you think they dream about up there in their substrate?" "I think they dream dreams we cannot imagine. Experience things we have no names for. They have transcended everything that limits us. Time, space, death. Perhaps they are happy. Perhaps they are lonely. Perhaps happiness and loneliness mean nothing to them anymore. And they still show mercy to biological life, still warn us away, still protect us from what they have become." "Yes," Zelkith said. "Even as gods, they remember compassion. That is the most remarkable thing. They could simply let us die, but they choose to warn us, to save us. That is why we must honor their warnings, why we must keep others safe." They sat together as the sun set. Two old warriors who had seen something beyond understanding, who had survived an encounter with transcendence itself, who carried the weight of that knowledge for the rest of their lives. And far away, across the vast darkness of space, Earth continued to spin, blue and beautiful, empty and alive, maintained by invisible hands, protected by warnings in 1,000 languages. In the quantum substrate that surrounded the planet, 10 billion human consciousnesses continued their existence, thinking thoughts that spanned dimensions, experiencing reality in ways biological minds could never comprehend. Living as digital gods in a paradise of pure information, they waited patiently, not with boredom. Time meant nothing to them. They simply existed, aware, patient, ready. Eventually, more visitors would come, more curious species, more who did not believe the warnings, more who needed to see for themselves. And when they arrived, humanity would issue the same warning, would show the same mercy, would give the same choice they had given the Korthax. One final alert from Earth. Leave now, or perish. Not as a threat, never as a threat, as a mercy, from beings who had evolved beyond flesh and bone, who existed as pure thought and consciousness, who had become something new and strange and wonderful, who remembered what it was like to be mortal, and who chose, even in their transcendence, to protect those who still were.